Welcome back to the Venari Podcast. I'm Gov Kandola, and we are joined for this episode by Darren Kettle. Darren is the CEO of Metrolink, a commuter rail system in Southern California, operating over 500 miles of rail network. Darren, welcome.
Thanks, Gov. It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning. And good afternoon in your part of the world.
I was going to say good morning to you. A nice and early start for yourself on the West Coast. And in today's episode, we're going to be gaining an insight into Metrolink, the effects COVID has had on the transit, along with the financial impact the Biden infrastructure bill will have for the business, given its ambitious plans for the 2028 Olympic and Paralympic Games, which aren't too far away. So Darren, to kick us off, do you mind telling us a bit more about Metrolink?
Our long name is the Southern California Regional Rail Authority. We provide regional rail, commuter rail to a 6-county region in Southern California. Los Angeles is, for the most part, the hub. It's where a lot of our employment center is, of course, in Southern California. But Southern California is a sprawling place. We have 538 route miles that we provide service on and 63 stations throughout our system. We were formed and had our first train run nearly 30 years ago in 1992. Third largest regional passenger rail system in the country. I've been on board for just about 6 months in this capacity. I had been working for one of the 6-county agencies in our system, one of the transportation commissions, and so one of the member agencies of Metrolink. But I've spent my entire career in Southern California, born, raised, and have been since taking on this job. I'm also a regular rider, so I experience what our customers experience.
Given the effects of COVID on the wider transportation industry, especially transit, how has Metrolink dealt with the issue of ridership recovery?
Before the pandemic, we were averaging a little over 40,000 daily riders on our system. The pandemic hit, we lost 90% of that ridership. And we're not unique. Regional rail, commuter rail, our job has been and historically has been to serve commuters. Commuters stopped commuting. So all of our systems were impacted by that. So we lost 90% of our ridership. At about the same time, we reduced our service by 30%. We continue to run in the United States. We had several different COVID recovery funding packages out of Washington, D.C. That is what sustained us over these last couple of years. So we're now in that ridership recovery mode. In April of this year, we'll be restoring 2/3 of the service we cut.
Wow.
So we'll be at 90% of our pre-pandemic levels. And then in October of this year, we'll be back up to 100% of our pre-pandemic service levels. As far as ridership recovery, we did get up to a little over 30% between the Delta variant and the Omicron variant. And then Omicron came in and sort of took the wind out of our sails through December and January. So we're now back into that recovery mode again. We're just about close to 30% of our ridership pre-pandemic. So we have a long way to go. While public transit has been hit obviously hard by COVID and loss of ridership, the regional rail systems, commuter rail systems took it the hardest. Our bread and butter had been monthly passes. We sold monthly passes to all of our commuters. Well, if people are only having to commute into the office 2 or 3 days a week, in the future, we darn well better change our model and not just recognize that we're going to be able to have that one revenue stream that we always could count on, those monthly passes. We're going to get creative in how we bring riders back, and that'll be really pivotal to our ridership recovery, and to look not just at new fare media and that type of thing, but looking at new markets. We're a commuter railroad. Well, we're going to drop the word commuter and we're going to say we're regional rail. We're going to do leisure trips, those types of things to try to capture new markets. And that's not an easy thing to do in Southern California, where we still have this major love affair with the car.
Yeah, it's just going to be essential being creative. But we are seeing, obviously, the signing of the infrastructure bill, which is going to have a huge impact on transit, but also sustainable mobility throughout the country. In terms of the bill itself, and any expansion plans, Metrolink have in mind, what effects will this have for the business?
The 538 miles that we operate on, we share those tracks. In many ways, we own them or are under our control, but we also work with 2 major freight railroads in Southern California, as well as Amtrak's Pacific Surfliner that runs the coast. So what we see is this is just great opportunity. The bipartisan infrastructure law increased funding to the Federal Railroad Administration by almost 500% as compared to prior years. This is a massive investment by the Biden administration and by Congress in rail. And we are in a position, because we've done a lot of groundwork over the last 5 to 6 years, to have projects ready to go to allow us to increase our capacity. We think about infrastructure in our world, and we always think about tracks and signals and grade crossings and that type of thing. But another big part of infrastructure, another big part of capital, is those things you see behind me in my background, those locomotives. We are the first regional railroad in the world to fuel our entire fleet, those locomotives, with renewable diesel. Non-petroleum diesel is now fueling our entire fleet. And but going back to your original question, we're positioned very well to take advantage of the bipartisan infrastructure law, because we have a number of projects that are ready to go. We've been working with the state of California, that also has a budget surplus, where there's this very strong push of that administration recognizing California's climate change objectives to get people into rail. And so I think we're going to be able to take advantage not just of the bipartisan infrastructure law, but also this substantial budget surplus in California.
Yeah, and obviously, this huge investment and this push for sustainability leads on to my next question. What is SCORE?
SCORE is a $10 billion infrastructure package that Metrolink started in its sort of the very earliest stages about 5-6 years ago to build out the infrastructure for rail in the Metrolink system over the course of the next 10 to 15 years. So that includes new station improvements throughout our system, double tracking, additional platforms at stations, all with the intent that throughout our system, that 538-mile system, that we have the ability to have half-hour bi-directional frequencies for our entire network throughout the day. One of the challenges in our system is we still have a lot of single track. And when you have single track, it makes it really, really difficult to have frequency and reliability in your system. And that's really the name of the game in the passenger rail industry, is frequency and reliability. And we struggle with that. So SCORE is a $10 billion program to make that happen. We have about the first $2.5 billion already in our budget moving forward over the course of the next 4 years. And the good news, again, is between the state of California's budget surplus, as well as the bipartisan infrastructure law in the United States at the federal level, we always stressed over whether we had the resources, whether we had the financial resources. Well, right now, there are resources for regional rail, more so than there have been in over 50 years. It's a real win for all of us.
It certainly is. And, yes, it's an ambitious plan, but with the Olympic and Paralympic Games just around the corner, it's very much needed. And with that in mind, how do you see Metrolink being part of the success of the Games?
The LA bid, when it was formed, was founded on the fact that mobility for spectators was going to be all around public transit, primarily because the venues throughout Southern California they're not going to allow spectator parking. So our transit systems in Southern California are going to carry the load. And if you were to look at a map of our network and you saw the 6-county region that we serve, from a public transit perspective, we are the backbone system. So again, whether you live in any of those outlying counties, and including, for that matter, Los Angeles, our system will be able to get to a number of the other venues that are just by one transfer. So that's the key to success in mobility in Southern California come 2028 for spectators. And it's really kind of a mandate for us. So myself, the Chief Executive Officer of LA County Metro, and 2 others that are part of we're part of what's called the Games Mobility Executives, to develop a mobility plan that can serve the 2028 Games. Whereas in 1984, Southern California just told people to stay home. It wasn't, unless you were going to an event, you were told to stay home. And because of that, the Southern California's notorious traffic wasn't a problem in 1984. I don't think we had that same luxury in 2028. So we have to have public transit be a success.
Well, look, it's an exciting time to be part of Metrolink. And Darren, thank you again for sharing your insights.
Thank you, Gov. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on your podcast.